Priscilla straight turned into the exorcist on this episode. Stay tuned and let's talk about it. Welcome back to another episode of Ruthless TV, where I break down Tyler Perry's The Oval scene by scene. Now, let's get into this video. Yep, you guys were right. Priscilla was actually dreaming. All of this was happening in her imagination. So this episode picks up exactly where it left off last week, with Priscilla actually gunning down the First Lady. But of course, once again, it was only in her imagination. Sam was standing there calling her name repeatedly, trying to get her to come back to reality. While the First Lady is over there calling her names and, just taunting her as usual, Sam is basically telling her that she needs to go back to the kitchen. And he also told the First Lady that there was no need for her to call her the B word. Then old horny Hunter here had to jump in and asked him who the F he think he was talking to. Then of course Sam kept it cool. He apologized and Hunter told him to get the F out of his face. And Victoria is telling Hunter that there's something going on with Priscilla, that she could see it in her eyes. And Hunter says, I really don't give a darn. So Priscilla takes Sam's advice and she goes into the kitchen, and then he goes after her and he's advising her that she should go home. But it's clear that Priscilla is in the middle of a full-on nervous breakdown. And he's telling her that Richard can take over her shift and that he could basically do all the cooking and stuff for her. And Priscilla is telling him, look, I'm not going anywhere. She says every time that she looks at Sam that it reminds her of the First Lady. And she basically said, she's not going to go anywhere. She's not going to go home. And she thinks that he wants to get rid of her so that he could have more time with Victoria. But she refuses to go home and she says that she has a job to do. And look, Priscilla's head was rolling around like the exorcist, refusing to move, refusing to go home. And she was just telling Sam to get out and she just kept yelling at him. But Sam is like the coolest MFer up in that White House, okay? Period. So we move on to the next scene and we see Bobby here in the bathroom and he's calling Lily, of course, and he apologized for what happened the previous night and they want to see each other. Look, ladies, y'all know what time it is. Let's bow our heads and have a moment of silence. Okay, now back to our regularly scheduled program. Bobby told Lily that he wants to meet her near the black and yellow sign. He tells her that he wants to meet her right away, but then she tells him that she can't because she's on the way to the White House. And then Bobby gets all inquisitive and he wants to know all about the First Lady and the President, where they're going, when they're leaving, how many stops they have to make, all the details. Then Lily gets a little suspicious and she wants to know why Bobby's asking all the questions. Then he says, oh no, it's nothing. I just want to know what time I need to meet you. Then before they got off the phone, Bobby tells her that he loves her, and of course Lily didn't say it back. Then we move on to our favorite TV hospital, St. Rhodes. So Nancy comes in with the doctor and the doctor is letting him know that she's there to address his headache, but as soon as the fluid bag is empty, he's able to go home. Then Richard found himself apologizing to the nurse for his behavior when Barry was first admitted to the hospital. Then Nancy let Barry know that she bought him a bag of clothes, but Richard wasn't too happy about that. He just took the bag and said, you just go warm up the car and I'll help Barry. I mean, look at her face. Nancy didn't appreciate that at all. She was a little taken aback. Then we move on to the next scene where Bobby is letting Max know that Lily has an appointment with the First Lady at the White House. He also lets him know that the First Lady and the President are going away from the White House, and this is the time where they need to make their moves. Then Max wants to know how he's going to know when they're leaving, when they're coming, and then Bobby tells him that he's going to ask Lily to give him that information, but Max is warning him that if Lily is providing information and something happens to them, that she could face federal charges for that. But Bobby lets him know that none of that's going to happen, that she'll be safe. Bobby says he's got to make some moves. He's got to take the head off the snake. He told Max it's either them or us. And I think Bobby is moving a little fast. This is so impromptu, but Max is with it. He gets up and they kind of agree to do it. And then here comes Blakely. Max tells Bobby to leave Kyle for him. Bobby says he's all yours. And then they left. Then we cut to Sharon and Kareem. Sharon is being released from the hospital. So the good old doctor here comes in and he's got all the good stuff. He's got the hydroquinone. He's got the Percocets. He's got the Vicodin, 800,000 milligrams of Motrin. So he gives it to Sharon and he releases him from the hospital. So in the next scene, we see Hunter sitting on the couch with the therapist when the Wicked Witch of the West comes in and she wants to know what she's doing there. And the therapist let Victoria know that the chief of staff requested her to be there. Before Victoria could harass her, they brought Jason in all battered and bruised. Then Donald tries to explain to them what has happened. And of course, Victoria wants to know all the details. But Donald is standing there and he's trying to reserve part of the information because, of course, course, Hunter doesn't want Victoria to know that it was Ellie who Jason assaulted. He's trying to throw her off a little bit and say, oh, it was just a staff member, and she wants to know which staff member, what's her name, who was it? Then she started calling Donald names, and of course, Donald, he had to let her know what was going on, and he said that Jason snuck in her trunk and then went home with her. So he had to let her know that it was Ellie. Then horny Hunter wants to know if Ellie's okay. Then Victoria says, well, your son is all bloody and you're worried about Ellie? And he was like, yeah. Then Victoria says, did anyone see him there? Like, these two parents are like the worst. The father is constantly running after the woman. He didn't even go into Jason's room, right? And the mom is talking about, she's worried about reputation and if someone saw them. Like, they need to take time to cater to their family and the needs of their son. That's why he's doing all this stuff, because he keeps getting away with it. They don't care. Then they both walked off, and then here comes Kyle, and then Kyle is letting Donald know that Jason's going to be just fine. He lets Donald know that there was no DNA or bodies found at the cabin, thereby making Bobby and Max still alive. So Donald put 2 and 2 together and figured out that Lily actually went to see Bobby last night instead of her designer. Donald wants to know how they can flush them out. Kyle lets him know that Max has a wife and a son. Doesn't really care much about the wife, but of course, now they want to go after his son, and of course, they want to, I'm sure, help him to leave Earth, just like they do everyone else. And Donald gave him permission to do it. Then the therapist came out to let Donald know how he was doing. Now, she's the doctor, the nurse, the lawyer, the Indian chief. She's everything. Like, how did she become a doctor? Like, for real? I thought she was just a therapist. I don't know. Maybe she's wearing many hats. But anyway, she told Donald that Jason was going to be just fine. Then we move on to Ellie's office, and Hunter is already there. He's sitting in her chair. So she stumbles in there, and she's upset. She's distraught. She's traumatized. And she's telling Hunter what has happened to her. And she said that he tried to, RAPE me. And Hunter is apologizing to her. And he wants to go to his office to have drinks with her so that she can relax. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this man is sick, like, literally. And then Ellie is asking him, do you care about me? And he's like, oh yes, of course, from the bottom of my heart. Like, he's just full of himself. And then he convinced her somehow to go to his office. Then we move on to the next scene where we see Barry and Richard entering the elevator. And look, you know what? Have y'all noticed how how built Richard is? Like, he cut. Yeah, Richard. Never noticed that before. But anyway, they get on the elevator, and of course the other people get off, and Sharon's tucked away in the corner behind Kareem, and of course eventually Barry has to notice her, and he says, Sharon, what are you doing here? Are you at the hospital for the baby? Like, did you have an abortion? And he's so hysterical, nobody can get a word in edgewise. But anyway, he's going off as usual. Then he notices the engagement ring on her hand, and he's hysterical. But then he throws down that duffel bag. He throws that duffel bag down, and now he wants to fight Kareem. And this is when Richard has to step in to let him know that Sharon almost died, on their way to try and rescue Callie. So he was just letting him know he needed to chill out and to behave himself. Then Barry just kind of breaks down and said that, he's tired of losing his children. And then they ended the scene. But as I was getting off the elevator, I noticed how Kareem and Sharon were looking kind of sad. Barry just... He's going through it right now. But the only reason I could see Sharon was trying to hide behind Kareem is because she didn't want Barry to see her. Then we move on to the next scene where Donald is going into his office and he's trying to get situated. And of course, Alan is helping him. And Alan is trying to help him tell lies to Senator Willis and all the other bigwigs as to where he's been for the past few hours. Then Alan tells him that the First Lady actually came into his office and she was looking for the route information for the motorcade when they went to Andrews that day. But Donald told him, don't worry about it. I'm sure they've discussed it. Don't worry about it. Then he began to ask about Jason, and Donald is telling him that he should not be talking about it, period, end of story, and go ahead and get to work as usual. Then 6-year-old Kyle runs in and he's telling on Sam, telling Donald that he can't get into his little computer because Sam has changed all of his passwords. Woo-hoo-hoo. So Donald tells Alan to go and get Sam. So Donald instructs Sam to reinstate all the passwords because Kyle can't do any of his dirty work. No, he told him to go ahead and reinstate the passwords because he is doing something for the president and it's a matter of national security. Oh my gosh, just a boatload of crap. Then when Sam leaves out, Kyle lets Donald know that Sam is going to be a problem. Then Ellie and horny Hunter makes it to his office and he begins to pour them a drink. Ellie is asking him, what's wrong with your son? And of course, Hunter is making excuses for him. Oh, he's a very, very sick boy. And Ellie is really concerned. She was like, oh my gosh, like how did he get into my place? Hunter tells her he doesn't know. I mean, Hunter's just trying to get some. He don't give a crap about this girl bit more than the man in the moon. He tells Ellie that they're going to get Jason some help and that she's actually safe there with him and that he won't be bothering her ever again. Then he starts in with these nasty, clammy kisses. Then he's telling Ellie to look at his fingers and talking about his fingers can blow up the world. I mean, 10-year-old Hunter again, who wants a gold star for his accomplishments. Hunter is really beginning to make me sick. He tells Ellie that he forgives her about the underwear situation. Then he turns her around and starts to try and have sex with her. And he wants it doggy style. You know, Hunter at this point, he's just a little predictable, right? I would really like to see his character have a little bit more depth, a little bit more dimension and diversity even. Just a little bit so that we can just kind of see, you know, him in a different light or the many sides of him. Because no person is one-dimensional, right? So it'll be good to just see him, you know, acting in his role a little bit, just being president, head of the country, head of the family, do something other than screw black women and, you know, talk bad to everybody. Maybe we'll see that side of Hunter in the next season. But in the meantime, this is all we got. Then while Hunter is doing his thing, we see Victoria turn around in the chair like she's the godfather. She turns around and lands one right across Ellie's face. She's yelling at Hunter and she's telling Ellie that if she sees her in the White House again, she's as good as dead. Then after Ellie leaves, Victoria is asking the president if there's anything that she can do to make him stop. And he said, no, there's nothing that you can do. Then she tells him that if her father passes away, that they will no longer be protected and they will basically have to suffer all the consequences of their actions. And then Hunter does agree with her and say that her dad is the puppet master who's holding all the strings. She told Hunter to get dressed because they have to leave in about an hour. Then right before she leaves out, he tells her that if she has to tell her dad anything, is to tell him about Jason and Ellie, and that Ellie is a threat to Jason and to them. Like, he's giving Ellie up. He's giving her up. He just told her that he cares about her from the bottom of his heart. Now he's giving her up. He's horrible. Just horrible. Then we cut to Sharon and Kareem is driving Sharon home, and Kareem is apologizing to her about the elevator fiasco. I guess he's apologizing because he didn't tell Sharon that Barry was in the hospital. And this scene was quite long, so I'll just try to sum it up the best that I can. And then Sharon thinks that Kareem only gave her the ring because, you know, just to piss Barry off, basically. Then in the end, she did tell him that she doesn't want to marry him. Then Kareem went into some old crazy statement talking about Sharon likes to be abused and that she's used to being abused and she's not used to someone loving her. She says that in the past, Kareem has just been a jerk in their relationship because he had an affair on her. And then she actually begged him to come back and he didn't. But he was letting her know that, you know, that was the old Kareem and that, you know, he had changed. Then Sharon told him that she had been through a lot in the past 24 hours and that she didn't want to talk about it anymore. So she just told him to just drive. And he apologized again and basically said that, you know, he's sorry and that he loved her. And big shout out to Tyler Perry for the background music because that scene almost had me. They drew me in. Well done. Then we move on to the next scene with the toy therapist and Jason. Then Victoria is asking, you know, how's he doing? She said he's going to be okay. And she said, well, I don't want him to be okay. He should have a concussion because he shouldn't have snuck out. And of course, Victoria never misses an opportunity to be rude and nasty to someone. So after she was mean and nasty to the therapist, she walked out. Then she goes over to Jason's bed and she sat on his bed and slapped the crap out of him. That woke him up, of course, and he told her to get out of his room. She told Jason that he's not going to any more doctors, no more therapists, that he's actually going to prison, that she was going to send him to the same place where his sister was. She lets him know that he's going to be getting some help in that internment camp that she's about to send him to. She then tells him to enjoy his last few minutes of freedom. So what did she tell him that for? Because now we know Jason is going to do something. He's going to pull another Jean or another Maud. They're probably going to have him to kill Ellie, period. Then in the next scene, we see Sam and Richard is asking Sam for his help, and Sam tells him again, you know, I have some people working on it in the FBI, and Richard is like, that's not enough, but Sam tells him that there's nothing more that he can do right now. He's letting him know that if they go up there with guns blazing, it's going to be another Waco or Ruby Ridge situation, and they can't have that. He tried to reassure Richard that everything's going to be okay. Then Sam asks Richard for a favor, and he tells him to keep an eye on Priscilla. And Richard wants to know, well, what if she asks me about, the incident with you and First Lady? And he told him to tell her that he knows nothing. Then we see Lily coming in. She's trying to get cleared to go upstairs to talk to the First Lady for her appointment. And then here comes Kyle. Lily tells him to get out of her face. Then, of course, Sam notices the treatment that she's giving to Kyle. And then Sam, of course, gives her the clearance to go on up. And he wants to know why she's so mean towards Kyle. And she tells him that she hates him. And Sam wants to know why. And she says, well, you work with him, so you basically should already know why. But then he sees her right on upstairs. Then we see the First Lady on the phone, and she's giving Lily the okay to come on in. In the meantime, we see Priscilla coming into the room. And I'm just wondering, why don't they have someone else serve this lady? I'm sure that Priscilla is not the only staff that they have in the kitchen. We've already seen Priscilla blow her lid in her imagination, but how are they really going to deal with this reality? And listen, I actually dropped a video yesterday, and it actually was like a mock video of them actually fighting. So if you haven't checked it out, I'll leave a link to it right up above. But I am so ready to see Priscilla give her those hands, because Lord knows she's asking for it. So Priscilla agrees to bring in the tea, but First Lady lets her know she's not going to drink a drop of it because of course she doesn't trust Priscilla. Then we see Sam walk in with Lily, and they pass Priscilla going into the kitchen. So when Lily sits down, Sam turns to walk away, and of course he wants to go and check on his wife. And First Lady said, no, don't go that way. She's gonna be fine. Go the other way. Oh my gosh, I'm so ready to see somebody clean her up, period. And look at Lily's face. She's like, oh my gosh, what did I just walk into? Then she gets into asking Lily for a dress for the visit for her dad. And Lily was like, I can get you the dress, but the last time you saw me, you told me that you didn't like my designs. And she calls her designs knockoffs. And, she just continues to insult her and her work. And Lily offers to get another designer to work with her, but she's like, oh no, I want you to do it. Then she turns around and asks Lily about her relationship with Donald, and basically saying, oh, you hate your husband, I hate my husband. Let's be friends. Like, are you kidding me? She's insulted this lady's work, insulted her talents, and just wasting her time. And now she wants to be her friend and wear her designs. This woman is bat crazy, okay? But the First Lady insists that they're gonna need each other in the coming days. So I guess Lily just gonna roll with it until she can't roll with it no more. Then the First Lady is wondering what's taking Priscilla so long with that tea. Then the camera cuts to Richard entering the kitchen, where Priscilla is standing there spazzing out yet again. Richard wants to know where everybody is, and then Priscilla tells him that they're dealing with something with Jason. And I'm glad Richard knows how to read the room, because he went right over to her and grabbed that knife out of her hand. Then she asks Richard if he knew what was going on with the First Lady and her husband. And Richard is like, let's not talk about it now. Let's not talk about it here. And Priscilla was like, well, where are we going to talk about it? He was like, well, just wait until we get our work. She was like, no, I want to talk about it now. She's telling Richard that she can't do this anymore. She says that the First Lady is evil. She calls her the B word, and she's yelling and screaming, and Richard can't calm her down. So in the meantime, Victoria enters the kitchen, and then she says, why are we so quiet now? Go ahead, say what you were saying. End scene. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Ruthless TV for Tyler Perry's The Oval Season 2, Episode 21. If you're an Oval fan and you have not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe so that you won't miss any updates on Tyler Perry's The Oval. And if you like the video, like the video. I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me once again. I'll see you on the next one.